Okay, guys, so this is my take two for screen time. The last time I got kicked off. So I'm hoping that this works this time. So I'm just going to check my phone and just make sure that we're on before I continue. So let's just do that. So I hope you're having a good day. It's nice out where I am. Let me know how it is where you are. I'd love to hear where you're coming from. So, oh, good. Okay, we're on. Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about a really important topic that I think we're all facing issues with right now, which is screen time. And so because of the pandemic, we're all, we're forced to figure out new activities for our kids to do. And screen time is just one of those activities that has kind of increased in, the way that we use it because of schooling and because of the fact that there's no play dates and there's no activities. So I'm sure that the screen time has become one of the biggest fights that you have had with your kids in this last couple months. I know I have really struggled with it, and a lot of my clients are struggling with it too. So maybe you're frustrated with when your kids won't get off the screens when you ask. Maybe they throw tantrums. Maybe you feel guilty because you think your kids are getting too many screens and they shouldn't be. Or maybe all your kids do all day is ask, when can I go on again? When can I watch my show? When can I go on my iPad? All day, every day. And it gets so frustrating and so annoying. So if this sounds like you, I have some suggestions for you coming up. So stay on and let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. So in case you're new to the group or new to me, my name is Adrienne Bishop. I am a certified positive discipline educator and a life coach for parents. And I help parents stay calm and remain confident so that they can raise happy, resilient children. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that maybe all screen time isn't bad, right? I feel like sometimes we vilify screen time. And this is really not a helpful thing to do in this time, especially because it's necessary for most parents, especially if you're working or even if you just need to have a break, right? So if that's you, screens are going to be necessary in your day. Even if you're home 24/7 with your kids and you don't work and you don't have something specific to do away from them, besides the typical household stuff, you still are going to need screen time as part of your day to give yourself some time to clean or have a break or do things that you need to get done. So it's important that we learn how to manage the screens in a way that works for us and for our kids. So what I want to offer is that you get curious about how the different forms of screen time are affecting your child instead of just vilifying all of screen time and just getting completely irritated and saying, that's it, we're done, we're not doing screens anymore, or something like that. I know we all have done that. I definitely have. So what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the screen right now? What are they practicing? Like if they're on Facebook Messenger with their friends and they're talking and they're learning how to converse over, an online platform. How do they feel when they're on the screen? When do they use it? So, is it at a good time of the day for them to be on? Or what could they be doing instead right now? So if right now I'm on a Facebook Live and my kids are on screens, I'm using it for that purpose. And they could be doing something instead, but it might interrupt me. So for right now, my kids are going to be on screens. And then maybe when I get off, we'll do something else. So that is one example. So also what you want to do is you want to figure out your value that you're holding around either giving screens or not giving screens. And then you want to make sure that the value that you're putting on what's important in regards to not being on a screen or being on a screen is something that you can really go back to when you're struggling with consequences and you're struggling with figuring out how much screens your kids should have. So like if your why is that right now, screens are part of our lives and we have to learn how to manage using them, right? So our kids are expected to learn how to be on screens in a healthy way. And that's part of my value system that I want to teach my kids. Then that why is going to fuel how I deal with screen time in that situation. So the other thing is that when you find yourself blaming screens and getting angry and using all or nothing mentality, this is going to really affect how you address it with your children. And it might even make it feel more like it's like this prize or this unicorn or this gold pot at the end of the rainbow, right? So like if you're vilifying screen time all the time and saying it's terrible, it's so bad, you guys need to just get off it, it makes you angry, your kids are going to think like, well, what's so great about screens, or why does she not want me to be on the screens so much? Like, and then maybe they'd want it even more, right? Just like dessert, it's kind of the same idea. So you want to make sure that your rhetoric around screens isn't all negative, okay? And I'll tell you a couple ways on how to do that. So instead of yelling, let's say your kids are on the screens and it's time to get off, and you've asked them a couple times and they haven't gotten off, you say, get off right now, right? So you get really angry and you yell, and then maybe your kids get off, maybe they still don't even get off at that point. Instead, you can find solutions with your child. So this is at a time, not during getting off the screen, but at a time when they're calm, you can say something like, I know how much fun you're having and how you enjoy playing with your friends on the screens, but we need to take breaks. How can we have both? And then you can start working with your child to figure out how you guys could get, meet in the middle in regards to taking breaks and being on the screen. Both things are important, and how can we compromise? The other thing is, if you're saying things like, you really are a jerk after you get off the screen, like you're angry and you're just a mess. And so this is just not happening anymore. I'm just done with the iPads. You're a jerk when you get off it. So you find yourself saying something like that, or you're so angry, or you're so mean. This is something that you can change into making more of like a validation and a respect as to the fact that your child may be actually using screens to help themselves be happier and healthier, and that they are enjoying themselves. And it's important that we recognize that this is part of their joy right now. And so we want to validate how they're feeling and then go and ask some questions. So you want to say, neither of us have been in a situation like this before, right? And I've noticed that you struggle to find something fun to do after you get off the screen. Have you noticed that too? And so you want to get curious with your child and get them to understand, like, this is how they're acting, and maybe it's not really a healthy thing to be, okay? The other thing you can do is make an agreement in advance. So instead of saying, that's it, no more screen time, it's over, you can say, you're welcome to have screen time again tomorrow or whenever the next time is, as long as you turn the TV off or the iPad off without screaming, yelling, or fighting, right? So you can, and then you can say, do you understand that this is our agreement, right? So you can have iPad or you can have screen time as long as you turn it off without screaming, yelling, or fighting. And then a really good way to do this is to practice it, to role play, getting off the screen without crying or getting angry. And you can say, what else can you do? Even if you're upset, what else could you do besides yelling or screaming? Maybe you can just take a couple deep breaths. Maybe you can squeeze your fists and your face real tight and just maybe yell into a pillow. Maybe you can go outside and run around for a minute, or just take a lap around the house if you're feeling really angry and you need to get out that energy, right? There's other things you can do besides yelling, fighting, or like throwing things. And so then you can role play that. Okay, let's get the iPad out and let's give it a try. Let's pretend we're putting the iPad away right now. And you're going to, instead of fighting with me or throwing things at me, you're just going to squeeze your fist in your face really tight, and you're going to take a deep breath. Okay? So the other thing you can do is you can make a schedule for the screen time with your child. And this sometimes can work if it works for you, right? So it has to be something you can reinforce and not just something that you just put into place because you thought it would be helpful. It has to be good for you as the parent. And then sometimes you don't even have to tell your child the schedule. I'm not actually telling my kids their schedule. I'm not listing it out, but I do say, you're welcome to have screen time at 1 p.m. You're welcome to have screen time at 7 p.m. if they ask me when the next time is. So that I do have in my mind set times where they're not on the screen and set times where they can be on the screen if we need it. So the other thing is, when you're getting your child off the screen, I learned this from my good friend and certified parent educator also, Sarah Scott. She says that what happens is their brains are filled with dopamine when they're watching their iPads or they're playing a game. And it's also combated with some cortisol. So both of those hormones are going on at the same time, dopamine and cortisol. And what happens is when you take the screen away from a child, the dopamine is taken away, but the cortisol is still there. So they end up having a lash out because they feel stress that's left over from the screen. So a good way to handle that is to actually work them slowly, almost like a withdrawal from the screen before you tell them to get off it. So this works really well with my kids. What you can do is you can sit there with first of all, you can give them warnings, 15-minute warnings, 10-minute warnings. And if you don't want to do this, you can set an alarm to do it for you. The other thing is you can sit there with your child while they're on the screen for the last 2 minutes or so of their screen time and just talk to them about what they're doing and what they're watching. And then you can slowly get them back into reality by connecting with you. And that really does help a lot. And you can say, respecting their time. If they're in the middle of a game, when is a good time for you to stop? How long do you need? And make sure you're respecting what they're doing and not just pulling them off in the middle of something when it's unnecessary. So all of these things now require us to deal with some upset kids, some disappointed kids, right? So let me know if your kids are feeling this way, if they're always disappointed when you take away the iPad, or when they're always throwing tantrums when you take it away or when you say no. If this is you, like, put in the comments, like, me, my kids are doing this all the time, because I have been there. I still am there. And so I have a couple ways for you to help deal with this situation. So once you've decided your why, once you've decided your schedule, once you've figured out what you're going to do in regards to screen time in a general way, then you have to learn as a parent how to be uncomfortable when your child is upset once you put that limit in place, or once you reinforce that limit, right? So you're going to have to follow through with whatever limits you put in place. And so you want to make sure that you're comfortable with this, that it works for you as the parent. And you can readjust anytime you want. You can reevaluate and change your mind. It's okay. But make sure it works for you. Make sure you're capable and it works for your personality to set these limits and keep them in place. So then when you're having to sit there with them while they're disappointed and upset, the best way to do that is to be in calm, confident, loving, understanding energy. Okay? This will help your kid not escalate farther and to be calmer quicker. And so you want to validate what they're saying. You're angry right now. You were enjoying playing with your friends. It's really hard to get off the screen. I know. But you know what? I know you can do it. You can feel anger and you can get off the screen, and it's going to be okay. There's going to be another chance in the future to go back on screens. So as you can see, I validated them and I helped them to understand what was going on in their brain and what is actually, what emotion they're feeling and why. So then what's going to happen is it's not going to work the first time. So you need to really stay patient and calm and repeat yourself. Yes, it's so hard. I know. And this might require being close to your child. It might require being far away, depending on how they're reacting. My son tends to throw things. So I have to kind of move away, but still I try to reassure him that this is totally part of the process and he is all right to be angry, but he's not okay to be throwing things. And then we reevaluate later about the next screen time or how to handle that situation. So the way that you stay calm and patient, let me know if it's you that you're like, great, that sounds great, but how the heck am I going to stay calm and patient? This is way too much of an ask. You want to focus on thinking about your child in a completely different way when it comes to the screen. So we always are taking it personally, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is such a pain in the butt. Like, why do you have to be like this? Can't you just get off the screen? This is making me more stressed out. This is causing me more pain. Just stop being this way, right? So we think those kinds of things, or they're being disrespectful, or my husband actually says they're being so entitled, like they're just entitled brats, right? So those kinds of thoughts are not going to help you stay calm or understanding. And so instead, what you want to have thoughts that are like, this is their way to feel good right now. And when I take away a good feeling from them, of course they're going to be upset. Makes total sense to me. Another thought you can have is, I can handle this. I can handle their emotions. It's no big deal. Or my kids are learning how to deal with disappointment, and that's a life skill that they're going to need. So this is actually useful. Nothing has gone wrong here. I know I'm doing the right thing in this situation, and it's okay for them to be upset. I don't have to solve it. I can just let them be upset. Or this is important that I stand my ground and that their anger and their reaction is temporary. It will pass. Another one that my friend uses is, my will is stronger than theirs. So the most important thing I want you to take away of is do what works for you as a parent, what you can stick to and what you need from screens. This is number one, because if you're not focusing on what your personality lends to, like if you don't do schedules or routines and you're not good at reinforcing like a lot of limits and a lot of rules, then you need to do what works for you first, okay? And then also what is best for your kids. So you need to compromise between the two things. And then you want to make sure that you just let go of the guilt. And the way that we do this is that we just decide that we're going to have our own backs and we're going to support whatever decision we make about screens in the moment or on a regular basis. Guilt is not useful. It's just not useful. So you can go on a guilt-free diet, and when those thoughts start coming up and you're like, I feel so bad about how many screens my kids have been on, their brains are going to be mush. Let it go. Have compassion for yourself, have compassion for the situation, and just know that it's not useful to feel guilty. Okay? So if that's, resonates with you, if you have guilty thoughts a lot, it's totally normal and understandable. And if you want some other ways to kind of deal with guilt, comment underneath and let me know. I can respond with a few more thoughts for you or a few more reasons behind that. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them about screens, because I know this is a huge challenge, but I just want to encourage you to be flexible in your own way of dealing with it and adapt as you go and have some grace for yourself and for your kids. That's like a huge flexibility and grace are my two like buzzwords for this lockdown. And just knowing that screens are just going to be a part of our lives. It's just how the world is going to be and is so important to understand, and to stop resisting the existence of them and start understanding how to work with them. And, sort of in harmony, essentially, like how can you and your family embrace screens in a healthy way that works for you and for your kids? So thank you so much for coming on. And I would love, if you have any questions, to put them in the comments. I'll come back and answer them. And I hope this was helpful, and have an amazing day. I hope that you enjoy the beautiful weather that we're all having. So, all right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.